In 1948, one of the great director-muse relationships was born, Akira Kurosawa and Toshiro Mifune. The movie was Drunken Angel, a film noir about two alcoholics, an irascible old doctor and a powerful young yakuza. The gangster stumbles into the doctor's home clinic late one night with a gunshot wound, and the two strike up a difficult friendship in the shadow of the town's poverty and gangland struggles. In the crossfire of these issues is the doctor's mysterious assistant, whose past binds the two men together. When her ex-lover, the gangster's boss, is released from prison, the clock starts ticking on an inevitable march towards doom. The entire story circles around a fetid pond where the locals dump their trash. It's full of waste paper, bicycles, baby dolls, and mosquitoes, and symbolizes everything that stinks about this town. Author Donald Ritchie has even suggested that the pond might be a post-war bomb crater, which would be appropriate. The specter of the lost war hangs over the whole film. While the characters and relationships grow throughout the movie, the town and its problems stay the same, breeding disease and despair. The chief killer is tuberculosis, and the gangster has a hole in his lung the size of a fist to prove it. The doctor, whose bedside manner makes Gregory House look like Patch Adams, tries to persuade the yakuza to watch his health, bringing out his patient's violent side more than once. The yakuza doesn't want treatment, he wants death. And this highlights the difference between the two men's approach to alcoholism. For the doctor, it's a way of life. He is mocked by the whole town for his boozy ways, even by the street urchins who taunt him, knowing that they need his services to survive. He downs pure grain alcohol mixed with tea and never appears sober in the entire film. As for the gangster, when he's clean, he's dapper and seductive to the town's floozies, and to a lovelorn barmaid who has pinned her heart on the wrong guy. But he sometimes binge drinks as a way to avoid his problems. A dead-end career as a small-town gang boss, the slow collapse of his ruined body, and his inability to connect with others. Alcohol is his one way out, but he's literally picking his poison. The two men's approaches to addiction also reveal their opposite ways of dealing with conflict. The doctor remains heroically steadfast in the face of obstacles. He faces down killers with plain-spoken logic.
てめえ、命は惜しくねえか？
何やが。一人前の人殺しにどなすんな。お前ら俺の方がよっぽど殺してるよ。
When he bumps into an old colleague who has made it big treating the upper class, the doctor's uninterested in his own penury, because he's clung to the 17 rules of Enjun, the Japanese Hippocratic Oath. Except for the second rule, you should always be kind to people. The doctor is shockingly rude to everyone, even those who are dying or have lost their beloved. The yakuza, on the other hand, rages against the dying of the light. Loss of his societal position, his lovers, and his health only push him into wilder and more dangerous territory. You may have noticed that I've avoided my usual bad habit of referring to characters by their actors' names. That's because, although Kurosawa made 16 films with Mifune and 21 with Takashi Shimura, both are so good in this that you'll forget who they are. Shimura, in addition to his Kurosawa credits, is unforgettable for his role in the original Godzilla, and of course Mifune is one of the most famous Japanese actors of all time. But the wild man we later will see in Yojimbo and Seven Samurai and Throne of Blood only appears in flashes. The gangster Matsunaga is, by day, a sharp-dressed, clean-shaven, smooth-talking boss. Kurosawa saw Mifune's wild side at an unrelated audition, and he lobbied to have the unknown actor as a stumbling gang lord, against the studio's wisdom. Obviously, Kurosawa was right. Mifune took over the film, his undirectable performance exploding onto the screen. Kurosawa said that Drunken Angel was the first time he finally got to make his own movie, free from studio interference. Drunken Angel definitely showcases an unfettered Kurosawa, making bold choices. Some have criticized the movie's uneven tone, throwing in dream sequences and musical numbers in what is otherwise a Japanese version of Bicycle Thieves. Stark social realism. I say, if a baby deer totters on its first walk, it's still walking months before any human could. And that is Kurosawa. Matsunaga is stuck between two archetypes, the loyal gang member and the lone wolf. For most of his career, Mifune played the lone wolf and laid the groundwork for Eastwood and Delon and De Niro and Lee and Norris. But this film gives the lie to that archetype. Matsunaga is actually surrounded by a support network he simply will not recognize. The doctor, his nurse, the barmaid. If he could recognize love, his tragedy would have been annulled. Drunken Angel focuses on a small neighborhood in Tokyo. And as with any neighborhood, you quickly get to know the locals. We've already established the drunk family practitioner, the despairing yakuza, the mysterious nurse, the lovelorn barmaid. But we also get a pair of faithless goons, a spunky schoolgirl fighting tuberculosis with John Henry-like strength, the cynical gang boss, and more. The other important character in this film is its soundtrack. There is a non-diegetic score that works, but is sometimes less than subtle. But the diegetic music is fascinating. A slightly awful dance hall number is shown in its entirety. There's a memorable sequence based on an event from Kurosawa's own life when the yakuza receives devastating news. Wandering the streets, suddenly an outcast in his own town, Matsunaga keeps hearing the Cuckoo's Waltz, a jarringly peppy children's tune, completely at odds with his own personal devastation. It's unsettling, to say the least. Throughout the film, a lone guitarist plays and replays the same tune each night by the side of the fetid pond. He's not terribly good. One night, the music stops and restarts with far more complexity and talent. The nurse, listening inside, freezes. She knows that it's her old lover, a hardened, ruthless gangster who has taken over the guitar. Originally, the song was planned to be Mac the Knife, the anthem of the anti-hero in Brecht's Threepenny Opera, who has returned to London to restart his career of theft, rape, and murder. Since the time of Bertolt Brecht and Kurt Weill, this song has become a jazz pop standard by the likes of Louis Armstrong, Bobby Darin, Ella Fitzgerald, Frank Sinatra, Lawrence Welk, Sonny Rollins, the Secular Furs, Tony Bennett, Dr. John, Bing Crosby, The Doors, Michael Bublé, David Cassidy, Robbie Williams, and McDonald's very weird latex crooner Mac Tonight. But back in 1948, the Threepenny Opera original, with its gleefully sinister hints of violent, destructive, sexual crime, had none of those glossy pop associations. Criminally, the studio could not afford the rights to the song, so another one was substituted, losing the rich past and future associations that could have been. Drunken Angel relies on music, but it's not a musical. It has several intense action sequences, but it is not an action film. It's a film about relationships, professional duty, and choices regarding life and death. Against all odds, its dark and twisted happy ending leaves the viewer sad but optimistic. Kurosawa and Mifune. I have a funny feeling those kids could go somewhere.